Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day so I can earn money from YouTube, so I can provide you some free education. So I do Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. We do in-person, hands-on technology classes. Basically, you show up and you learn. We're having our first class again in a while in Durham, North Carolina next week. That is all full, but we're going to be having more classes coming up soonish. So if you're interested, make sure to become a member of silicondojo.com. And we get to talk about my favorite subject. My favorite subject in 2025. That's right, my friends. We get to talk about layoffs. Layoffs! Yay! So I talk about layoffs a lot simply because the number one question I get from my viewers is, how do I get a job? Right? It's not about stacks. It's not about adding value. It's not about a lot of other things. It is, how do I get a job? And the big problem that I try to explain to people is, I can teach you how to solve problems. I can teach you how to value add. I can teach you how to decide which stack to use. But getting jobs, that has more to do with macro forces at the end of the day than anything else, right? Over the past 10 years, with interest rates at 1%, these companies were simply hiring people to put asses in seats. You were literally getting hired for your ass. Sexism was over. Fat ass, unwashed white guys, their asses were sexy too, right? Their ass was getting them hired. It wasn't just the cute young things, because these companies just needed asses in seats to pretend like they were successful, right? Economy shifts, things change. You put a rocket on a turkey, doesn't mean the damn thing is actually flying. And so now things are going through a reset process, and now it's becoming incredibly difficult to get a job, right? You hear about people saying, I put out 2,000 or 3,000 resumes and nobody called me back. Oh my God. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens, right? That's, you prepare for luck, right? It's being prepared for luck. When an opportunity is in front of you, do you have the resources and capability to take that opportunity? When I met Adolfo, when I was still working at that pizza delivery company in Seattle before I got laid off, and I ran into this guy named Adolfo who ran his own little telephone consulting company. I said, hey, is your boss hiring? And he said, actually, I'm my own boss. And then he took me out, and we spent like 5 or 6 hours together as he explained to me how to become a technology consultant, right? With my skills, with all of that stuff. I went back to Baltimore, I put up my pull tab signs, and by God, I became a consultant, right? It is optimizing for luck. That's the issue that we're in right now, is everybody's focused on getting jobs. They're not necessarily focused on getting skills. Why should I update my GitHub, Eli, when nobody's hiring me? Because GitHub is what they're going to look at to see whether they should hire you. Right? If you actually talk with a startup founder, like what happens? When I was in Seattle, I literally worked with a sister of one of the first employees at Microsoft. And it was funny talking to the sister, because apparently her brother, when he was in school, was kind of a dopehead. He was kind of a dopehead. He was kind of a dropout, and nobody's really sure what the fuck was going to happen with this guy. And he met Bill Gates. And one thing led to another. And now her brother, that she used to laugh at and give shit because he was a dopehead and a fuck off, is now very, 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 very wealthy, right? And the question is are you optimizing for those situations? But anyways, right? So I'm talking about layoffs right now because this is just the environment that we are in. And you do have to understand it. So you think about more of, what you're going to do. So we have Accenture making room for AI with thousands of layoffs. Oh, you see, little Timmy, you see, little Tyrone, you're about to have an AI sibling. And so you're going to have to share your room with your AI sibling. Really what would be nice is, I think you're old enough now, little Timmy. I think you're old enough, little Tyrone. You are 12 years old. 150 years ago, if you were 12 years old, you would be expected to get married and to be going out and doing a full-time job and get your own house. Maybe little Timmy and Tyrone, maybe it's time you put your big boy pants on and move out of the house so AI has a bed to sleep in. Anyways, yeah, that's the world we're at now. Kicking our employees out of the businesses so that AI has a place to sleep. We want to make sure that AI is comfortable. The IT consulting firm plans to let go of more staff over the next few months if they can't adapt to the demands of AI. And I do find this to be a fascinating thing in the modern world of technology. We're seeing this more and more, that the technology does not have to keep up with the demands of the humans. The humans, more and more, have to keep up with the demands of the technology. But basically, this is going on. Everything is getting automated, right? Too many asses in seats. People realize that is not a way to be profitable, and so they're getting rid of those asses in seats, and they're using AI. I think one of the curious things here, though, with Accenture is the focus that employees have to use AI themselves. I was talking to somebody I know last night, and they were talking about, their CEO is pushing AI in their environment, and I was talking to them. I was like, are they focused on a solution? Are they saying this process is too slow? We're burning too many resources in order to complete this process. So use AI or use automation systems to figure out how to make this process more efficient. And the curious thing is, he said, no, they're not. They're just like, use more AI. And it is this weird thing we have with this whole AI dipshittery of, it's not about solving problems, right? Our job is about solving problems with technology. If I can solve the problem with AI, fine. If I can solve the problem with a fucking if-else statement, fine. Right? What we should be focused on is solve the problem in the most resource efficient manner possible. And what's curious, though, is what we're seeing with this whole AI thing is that shit's gone out the window. It's not about solving the problems. It's not about solving the problems efficiently. It's that you must use AI regardless. And I don't see how that's going to work out well for a lot of these companies, right? You don't think about it. Like when you use email, when you use Outlook or you use Exchange or whatever, like Exchange is a back-end database system. So one of the reasons, again, I got my MCSE back in 2000. I had a buddy of mine who got her certification in Exchange Server. All right, so she literally said the Exchange Server certification was the most difficult certification she had ever been through. And one of the interesting things with Exchange Server, so that's the email communication server, at least back in the time, is they have a database. They have a database to store the emails and all the records and contacts and all that kind of stuff. And so the issue, especially back in the time period, was if the database got too big, it would become unstable. And you might corrupt your entire Exchange database. Not a mailbox, everybody's mailbox. And so what they had is you would actually put Exchange servers, as I understand, into clusters. Basically all this was a database cluster so that you would have a replication strategy so that no one database would get too big. You would have fault tolerance and the whole 9 yards. Now why I talk about that is, you sit down and you go to use email. You go down to use email. Here's my question for you. Yeah, what database system is that? Yeah, no, I'm asking you a fucking question here. What database system is Exchange Server using in order to store your emails and contacts and all that kind of stuff? And you're probably saying that, who the fuck cares? Why the fuck do I care what database system Exchange Server uses? Which is the correct answer? But I think that's the interesting thing, is what we're looking at right now with all this AI horseshit out there, is it's not like we want to use this specific tool, right? We feel that people, like say for cold emails or warm emails, we feel our salespeople are spending too much time crafting cold emails, and this is costing money, right? That's a real thing. We want to automate the process of email writing. Well, the thing is, if you say you want to automate the process of email writing, right, that may be AI, that might be an LLM. It also may be simply a template functionality with basically simple macros in there. Right? There's 5 or 6 different ways you can solve that particular problem, right? That will massively increase the efficiency of being able to send out emails and the whole 9 yards. And the thing is, though, the employee doesn't really need to know what the fuck the back end of it is. Again, think about how many systems you use. What is the database management system for so many of the back ends of the front end systems that you use? You have no fucking clue. You have no fucking clue what the database management system is because it doesn't fucking matter. You're using a product to solve a problem. And I think that's the interesting thing with so much of this AI focus is it loses track of that fundamental question that we should all be focused on as technology professionals is what is the best, most efficient way in order to solve the problems. But this is all about AI, because again, just like when you got a job, right? 5 years ago when you got a job and you were surprised people would hire you and would pay you, right? Just like you getting that job had not a good goddamn thing to do with the company actually being able to ship product, right? It was all about something. It was all about something else. It was all about investor optics, not shipping, not revenue, not profit, not efficiency. It was about investor optics. The issue that we're dealing with right now is it is the same fucking thing. They've just shifted, the fancy thing that they want the investors to look at. This is just investor optics. Look, we're using AI. Who cares? Again, whether it's AI and if else statement, what does it matter? And that's where I get concerned with this whole AI bubble thing. And I hear it from real technicians in the real world with their CEOs. Again, we hear it enough in the news. Is there's focus on AI. You have to use AI. Yeah, but to do what? What are we solving for? Anyways, Accenture has laid off more than 11,000 employees in the last 3 months and warned that staff should expect further layoffs as part of a massive AI-focused restructuring program. The IT consulting firm revealed the news on Thursday, which is expected to cost around $865 million in severance payments. Again, when I talk about doing return to office and them trying to get you to quit, think about this, right? 11,000 employees is going to cost them $865 million in severance payments. If they can get half of those employees to simply quit, that means $430 million in severance payments don't have to get paid. Anyways, between May and August this year, the company's headcount fell from 791,000 to 779,000. That is one thing to realize with some of these companies. They are pretty damn big, almost 1 million people there, but they're still laying off 11,000 folks. The current round of layoffs are expected to last until November, while Accenture plans to train its remaining staff on different AI platforms. The company outlined the program, which is expected to cost up to $865 million in severance last week. On a call, Chief Executive Julie Sweet noted, quote, "We are exiting on a compressed timeline. People where reskilling based on our experience is not a viable path for the skills we need." I think this is another interesting thing we're going to start seeing out of more of these companies. The idea before is instead of doing layoffs, what if you just shuffle employees around? Right? Instead of hiring people in different divisions or whatever else, basically you already have employees with the company. Can you shift them into other roles? I think what we're going to start seeing more of is where these companies basically say it is not viable to reskill. We would prefer to start with a blank slate and then only hire the 2 or 3 people that we think we actually need to hire. It is hoped that the cuts will allow Accenture to expand operating profit margins at its historic annual rate. According to Financial Times, over the last couple of years, the company has observed a decline in the number of companies tapping its services for short-term projects. That's one of the other things to be looking at here, right? So Accenture is basically an IT consulting company. It is like the mother of all managed service providers, essentially. Well, not really a managed service provider, but anyways, consulting company. One of the curious things to look at is, again, what are they complaining about? The issues that they're running into. And one of the issues that they're running into is that they're seeing a decline in companies tapping them for short-term contracts, right? Contracts where they're like, well, maybe we need to build out something, or maybe we need to do this project or whatever else, bring Accenture in. More and more companies are like, they're just not calling Accenture. And this is where I talk about the dominoes falling, right? Trump does something asininely stupid. That affects a corporation. You don't care, right? You're not in the oil business. I did this video yesterday talking about the oil business. Who the fuck cares about the oil business? Let the oil business burn. You want to burn Mother Nature to the ground, motherfucker? You should burn to the ground. Yeah, but that oil company basically buy services from Accenture. And then you work for Accenture. And then you get laid off. And then you have a house that has a mortgage, and now you're getting laid off into a market where there's a glut of tech people, so maybe you can't pay that mortgage, and so your house goes into foreclosure. See how the dominoes fall? Anyways, the layoffs, which have already led to the departure of more than 11,000 people, form part of a wider pivot towards AI. The company warned its existing workforce that more of them would be asked to leave if they can't adapt to the new technology. And we're hearing more of this. Alongside this, Accenture plans to train staff on AI systems. According to Suite, quote, every new wave of technology has a time where you have to train and retool. Accenture's core competency is to do that at scale. Over the past 6 months, Accenture has generated $2.6 billion in revenue for its AI consulting work. It is not surprising then that the company is looking to embed the technology even further into its practices. In 2025, firms everywhere are turning to automation to address business shortcomings. As this research demonstrates, a staggering 58% of surveyed respondents confirmed that, quote, pressure from competitors was in fact the primary motivator for implementing AI. So the implementing the AI wasn't about efficiency and selling products and all that kind of stuff. It was feeling like there's pressure from competitors, right? Optics. This shows that for many businesses looking to AI, their actions aren't necessarily the most well considered. Fair enough there. Fair enough. So there you go. So Accenture laying off 11,000 employees to make room for their new sibling AI. Don't want to make AI uncomfortable now, do we, little boys and girls? So they're going to be bringing that in at the exact same time. They're telling their employees to get on the AI bandwagon or get the fuck out. As I say with this whole issue, again, it goes back to the old exchange thing. Do you know what the hell makes exchange tick? No. Should you give a fuck? Also no. But for some reason, in the AI world, you've got to be using the AI products. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I've talked about this with the failure of tech leadership and tech management over the past decade and a half or so, where it's not just the employees, right? I beat up on the employees because most of my viewers are employees, and you've got to understand just how fucking stupid you people have been acting, right? I know it sounds cute when you're constantly snarky and bitchy about your boss and bitchy about your company and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not, right? You bring this baggage into your company. When your boss comes to talk to you and you act like a piece of shit, like the snideness oozes off of you, why the fuck do you expect you're going to get promoted or more responsibilities or anything else, right? And I talk about this a lot just because, again, there's a lot of employees out there that are confused. It was amazing when I'm doing these one-on-one meetings. Like when I do one-on-one meetings, it's casual professional, but it's also professional. Like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Or basically, these are free consulting sessions. And so I understand the caliber of I'm not getting fucking CEOs most of the time coming to these sessions. I understand the caliber of the people, but again, it's like, look, you don't have to put a business suit on or whatever else. We can talk, but it's also a professional level, right? And it's amazing. It's amazing how many people will get on these calls and they will just start shitting on their bosses. They will start shitting on the owners. They'll just start shitting on the companies. And I'm just like, looking at the webcam. Okay. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say right now, right? Anyways, and that's one of the reasons I keep trying to smack the employees. Again, when your union strikes a company that is de facto bankrupt, it's not going to work out very well. It's just how it is. But one of the other problems that we have is a lot of managers, a lot of leadership. Again, one of the things I talk about, right? There's owners. In the world, there are owners and there are employees. The CEO is an employee. Your manager is an employee. You're a fucking employee. There's owners and there's employees. And one of the most amazing things with so much of the tech leadership is they're also just very shitty employees, and they've gotten their jobs too based off of all of this investment wealth that has been coming in, and they haven't been doing their jobs. Again, and when I talk about these leaders in management, right, they're not the employees' fucking therapists. They're not their rector or their minister or whatever. They're sure as fuck ain't the parents, right? Your boss is not there to give you a fucking purpose to live, right? Their job is there to make sure all the cogs are running fucking efficiently. And if the cogs aren't running efficiently, to figure out how to make them run efficiently. Sometimes you have to be a mean boss. If you don't do better, I'm gonna fire you, right? That's one of the things managers have to do sometimes. Other times, you come in and then you see your employee losing their fucking mind because they got way too goddamn much work to do, and then you trot the fuck out of the room and you go hire somebody so they have enough resources, right? It's about fighting the fight. It's about going to the higher level executive. It's going to the C-levels, and the C-level saying, your department has to do better. And sometimes it's like, yes, my department I understand, we're going to make things more efficient. Other times it's looking at the C-level and like, look, you're not giving us the fucking resources. You give me 50% more resources, I will make all the problems disappear. But if you give me no more resources, right? That's like the manager's job. And one of the things too is, again, like with these systems, we talk about AI systems and the rest of it. Part of the manager's job, part of the leadership's job is figuring out what tools are appropriate for your team, and not just what tools are appropriate for your team, just even from a technical standpoint, but again, when you start thinking about things like maintenance costs, are there maintenance contracts or subscription services, right? That's a thing a leader has to think about. What is the regulatory compliance, right? If you are running marketing for a t-shirt company, you don't probably have to worry about HIPAA and that kind of crap. If you're running marketing for a healthcare company, right, understanding HIPAA and all that kind of stuff matters. So, okay, the AI systems that we're going to use, are they using end-to-end encryption, encryption at rest, encryption in transit, the whole 9 yards, or is there no encryption there? So this is one of my fucking issues with the dipshit leaders and managers. At this point, they don't want to do their fucking jobs, right? It's like, you need to use more AI. Yeah, I told my employees, motherfuckers, they need to use more AI. It's like, yeah, but what's the regulatory environment? what do we need to think about for institutional knowledge, right? What does this mean if this becomes a legacy system for our department, right? All of this kind of stuff comes up. And that's where I just get so frustrated right now with some of these managers and leaders. And they're like, the employees need to use more AI. Like, fucker, that doesn't mean anything, dipshit. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how many worthless fucking employees have been paid a shit ton of money over the past decade because they obviously aren't competent to do their fucking jobs. Telling your employees they need to use more AI doesn't actually mean fucking anything. But anyways, and this is one of the things you need to be thinking about if you are in a tech leadership position, right? The people that I wanted to talk to. When I started creating videos back in 2009, I thought I was going to be talking to tech professionals and leaders. I was wrong. But this is what you need to be thinking. If you are in a technology leadership position and you're looking at AI, what you need to be thinking about is think about the holistic approach of using these technologies. Where are you having problems in your workflow? Where does it seem there are inefficiencies in your workflow? Like, what resources do you have to bring to bear? What does a win look like? What does a loss look like? What regulatory compliance issues do you have to deal with? If you deploy this type of system into your environment, what does it mean the moment it becomes fucking legacy? Right? The moment you deploy that shit is the moment it becomes legacy. In 10 years, when somebody's looking at this piece of shit that you deployed, are they going to say, well, that seemed reasonable 10 years ago? Or are they still going to be screaming about how stupid you were? Right? These are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about, not just this willy-nilly, use AI. And it's talking to the employees. See, again, yes, getting employees to use different things, figuring out what their pain point is. Okay, you're not using AI solutions to do your job. Why? Right? Think about this. If I'm doing my job right now, there's layoffs and everything else going on in the world, and I'm doing my work, right? I come in and I work 90% of the day. I come in, I do my coding, whatever else. One of the things you have to realize is that AI might add bugs. AI might add problems, right? Simply throwing AI doesn't solve things. It is simply a new tool to your workflow. Once you figure out your workflow, it'll be fine. I think about this with back when I had my company, we always used McAfee. Now, to be clear, it was McAfee 16 years ago, not McAfee today. We always used McAfee antivirus. And the reason we always used McAfee antivirus back in the day is if you went back to that 10-year time period in the early 2000s, basically, whenever you looked at the top 3 competitors in antivirus, it was either Norton, McAfee, and somebody new. So like Norton would be first, McAfee would be second, and then Trend Micro would be third, let's say in 2005. And then McAfee would be first, Norton would be second, and Kaspersky would be third in 2006. And then Norton would be first again, and McAfee would be second, and AVG would be third. Right, and that was what. If you looked at the top 3, McAfee was always in the top 3. And the thing is all of these security products had issues. They just had quirks. Fucking Norton. I got paid so much money off of Norton simply because it would just do stupid shit, and I would get paid money basically to unclick things on Norton. But McAfee had the same problems, and Kaspersky had the same kind of problems. So anyways, the reason that we standardized on McAfee is McAfee was always generally a good product in the era, and we knew what the quirks were, right? If every computer we shove out the door has McAfee on it, then when we run into a problem, we've already seen that problem 500 times. We already know what checkbox to do. We already know how to solve the issue, right? Whereas if one computer has McAfee and one computer has Norton, one computer has Kaspersky, and one computer has Trend Micro, and one computer has AVG, it's a fucking shit show, right? Because it's like, oh, I think it's probably an antivirus system problem. Let me figure out how it is, right? So it's streamlining the process. And that's one of the things you have to think about with AI, right? Artificial intelligence is going to add problems to your workflow. And I don't say that to be snarky, just saying that to be realistic, right? Any solution you deploy is gonna have quirks. And so if you have an employee, they're already worried about getting laid off. They already are focusing on the work that they're trying to do. And then you just tell them to use AI. And they're already working hard. The problem is when they add AI into their workflow, it's going to add problems. And so do they feel that they have enough breathing room to actually be able to work through those problems? Or do they feel that the AI is just going to put them even farther behind? Right? And this is the kind of thing that you need to be thinking about as a manager. Sitting down with your employees, treating your employees like they're fucking human beings, and saying, look, okay, this is what's coming from the executives, right? I've tried to couch it to make it more digestible to you, but we still need X, Y, or Z done. I see that you're not doing X, Y, or Z. Where are we running into problems here? And again, it might be an intransigent employee. It might just be a dumb fuck employee because there's enough dumb fuck employees out there. So that might be the problem. The other problem might be their workload is already too high, or they're nervous, or whatever else. Maybe you need to partner peers up, right? If you have a team of 10 people, maybe you put people into teams of 2, maybe a slightly more senior person with a slightly more junior person, and you have those teams start deploying more AI solutions. So it's not falling on any one person, right? They can help each other out. Maybe it's having lunch and learn sessions, right? Okay, we're going to have one employee. One employee in our team is going to use AI this week to solve one of our fucking problems, right? You're on a team. You got a lot of problems. I know you got a lot of problems, right? So just say, okay, every week, one employee is going to pick their pet peeve problem, and they are going to use AI, an AI tool, to focus on trying to solve that. And at the end of the week on Friday, we're going to buy some pizza, we're going to buy some really good food, sushi or whatever else. We're going to come in and we're going to do a lunch and learn session on how this product did or did not solve the problem. Right? These are the kinds of things to be thinking about. But of course, as I've said, leaders and managers are fucking piece of shit employees like all the other piece of shit employees. So they're not doing their jobs either. They are just putting diktats, because apparently 2025 is the era of diktats. They're just putting diktats onto their employees. You will use AI or I will punish you. Which is just not good for anybody. Not good for anybody. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about Accenture's layoffs to make room for IT? What do you think about the sticks being used by all these big technology companies to tell their employees, you better get on the AI bandwagon, and not bothering to do all of the rest of the work that should go along with that? What do you think about that? What do you think about that moment you realize your boss is an employee too? Like, I think about that with my father. The moment I realized my father was a son, right? So we were going to Thanksgiving. We were going to Thanksgiving years and years and years ago, right? And I'm a Buddhist, right? Anyways, brought up Buddhist by my mother's side. My father was Christian. My father was Christian. Anyways, and at some point, you know what happens with Christian fathers. I don't know, kid gets to a certain age and all of a sudden, they start beating him with Bibles, whatever. Anyway, so I was told, we were at Thanksgiving, and basically my father announces to the entire family, before he had said anything to me, that I was going to start having one-on-one sessions with a minister at the local church so that I could understand Jesus just a little bit better. Anyways, did not go over well. Did not go over well. Anyway, so we sit there getting an argument, and it was fine. Grandpa comes in. Oh, God bless Grandpa. Grandpa comes in, and we're sitting there, and he's like, okay, everybody, calm down. And he's like, Eli, here's the thing, with religion, this is a personal decision, all that kind of stuff. And, it takes a lot to think about the religion you want to devote yourself to. And then there was a piano. My grandmother loved her piano, and on the top of the piano, they had some books. So my grandfather goes up, and there's like this big picture book type thing, and pulls it down. And it was a book of 50 religions. A book of 50 religions. So my father, going through that whole like late 80s, early 90s Christian book revival horseshit, is like trying to get me to sit down with a minister so I come to God or Jesus or whatever. And my grandfather pulls out a book of 50 fucking religions and hands it to me. Oh my God, my father lost his shit. And it was at that moment, as I had a book of 50 religions in my hand, I looked up and went, oh my God, my father is a son. My father is a son. Very, very, very pivotal moment in my lived experience. So what do you think about that? What do you think about your boss as an employee? I don't know. Something to ponder. So anyways, if you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a real nutneck and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember SiliconDojo.com exists. Silicon Dojo, free and use your hands-on technology classes. We're doing them in Durham, North Carolina. Our next one is actually way too fucking full. I failed by being too successful for that one. Anyways, that's coming up next week, but we're going to be having more classes in Durham. So if you're interested, go to SiliconDojo.com and become a member. And with that, see y'all later.